You know that conversation you keep having with yourself? The one that goes something like, I'll start investing when I get my raise. Or I'll start putting money away once I pay off this credit card. Or maybe, I'm still young. I've got time. I know that conversation because almost everyone has it. And here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to hear. Every single month you have that conversation instead of taking action, you are making one of the most expensive decisions of your entire life. Not because investing is complicated, not because you need a financial advisor or a six-figure salary or some secret access to Wall Street, but because of something so simple and so mathematically powerful that once you see the actual numbers, you will never think about money the same way again. And today, we're going to look at exactly what happens when a 25-year-old invests just $500 per month. Not $5,000. Not $50,000, just $500. The kind of money that feels almost embarrassingly small when you're talking about retirement. By the end of this video, you're going to see a number that will either excite you, terrify you, or both. And if you're older than 25, don't go anywhere, because I'm also going to show you exactly what waiting costs you in real dollars, and what you can do about it right now. My name is Liam. And I spend way too much time thinking about money, compound interest, and why some people end up wealthy while others work their entire lives and still can't afford to retire. If you want to understand the real mechanics behind wealth building, instead of just hoping things magically improve someday, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up changing how you think about your financial future. Now, before we get to the number, let me ask you something. When you think about $500 a month, what does that feel like? For most people, it feels like a lot. It's a car payment, it's half of rent in some cities, it's groceries plus utilities plus a streaming subscription or two. And if you're making $45,000 or $55,000 a year, setting aside $500 every single month feels like a genuine sacrifice. It feels like something only people who are already comfortable can afford to do. And that right there is the first myth I want to destroy today, because that feeling is exactly what keeps most people broke. Here's what $500 a month actually is when you break it down. It's about $16 a day. It's the cost of skipping one restaurant meal and one coffee run per day. It's canceling subscriptions you forgot you had. It's brown bagging lunch 3 times a week instead of 5. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's achievable. And the difference between people who find a way to make it work and people who don't isn't income, it's priority. Because here's the thing about money. It doesn't go where you intend it to go. It goes where you tell it to go. And most people never give it clear instructions. But let's stop talking about the sacrifice and start talking about the reward. Because this is where things get genuinely mind-blowing. If you are 25 years old and you invest $500 every single month into a diversified index fund, earning an average annual return of 8%, which is a conservative estimate based on the historical average of the S&P 500, by the time you turn 65, you will have approximately $1.74 million. Let that sit for a second. You contributed $500 a month for 40 years. Your total contributions out of your own pocket add up to $240,000, and yet your account balance is $1.74 million. That means the market generated over $1.5 million on your behalf. Money you never earned from a job. Money that showed up because your existing money was working around the clock, every single day, for 4 decades, while you were living your life. This is compound interest, and it is the closest thing to a financial superpower that actually exists in the real world. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. 8% sounds optimistic, so let's run the conservative version too. At 6% annual returns, that same $500 per month over 40 years grows to approximately $1 million. Still a millionaire. Still on $500 a month, still starting with no existing wealth, just consistency and time. And here's where the analogy that changed how I think about this comes in. Imagine you plant a single tree at 25. In the first few years, it barely looks like anything. It's a skinny little thing that doesn't provide much shade and definitely doesn't look impressive. You water it every month. You're consistent. You don't dig it up when it stops growing as fast as you want. By the time you're 45, it's a real tree. People are starting to notice it. By 65, it's a massive oak that took almost no daily effort from you, provides enormous value, and will outlast you. Compound interest works exactly like that tree. The early years feel invisible. The late years feel miraculous. But you can't have the miracle without the invisible years first.
Let's talk about what's actually happening mathematically, because understanding this will make you never want to delay again. In year 1, you invest $6,000. At 8%, you earn $480 in returns. Not impressive, not life-changing, totally underwhelming. By year 10, your account has grown to around $87,000. Now, your annual return at 8% is roughly $6,960. You're essentially earning an entire extra month of contributions just from returns. Your money has started working a second job. By year 20, your balance sits around $294,000. Your annual return is now nearly $23,500. That's almost $2,000 per month flowing into your account without you doing anything additional. By year 30, you're sitting at around $745,000. Your annual return is now approximately $59,600. Your investments are generating more money in a year than most Americans earn from their jobs. And by year 40, you've crossed $1.74 million. Your annual return is nearly $140,000. The machine you built with $500 a month is now generating almost $12,000 per month on its own. This is why wealthy people talk about money working for you instead of you working for money. It's not a motivational poster. It's literally what happens when you start early and stay consistent.
But here's where I need to show you something that might be the most important part of this entire video. And it has nothing to do with being 25. It has everything to do with what waiting actually costs you. Let me introduce you to two people. We'll call them Maya and James. Maya is 25. She starts investing $500 a month today. She does this consistently for 40 years, until she's 65. We already know her outcome, $1.74 million. James is also 25 right now, but James decides to wait. He tells himself he'll start at 35, when his career is more established and he's earning more. And he does start at 35. He invests the same $500 a month, earns the same 8% return, and contributes consistently for 30 years until he's 65. James's final balance? Approximately $745,000. Same monthly contribution, same investment strategy, same discipline. But James ends up with almost $1 million less than Maya. Not because he did anything wrong, not because the market treated him differently, simply because he waited 10 years. 10 years of telling himself he'd start later cost him $995,000. That's not a typo. Nearly $1 million. Gone. Not lost in a bad investment. Not stolen. Just evaporated into the gap between intention and action. Now let's look at someone who waits even longer. Meet Chris. Chris is also 25 right now, but waits until 40 to start investing. He contributes the same $500 per month for 25 years at the same 8% return. Chris's final balance at 65? Around $473,000.
Chris contributed for 25 years. Maya contributed for 40. But Maya doesn't just end up with a little more. She ends up with $1.27 million more than Chris, despite investing the same amount every single month. Here's the number that should genuinely alarm you. Every single year you delay starting at 25 costs you approximately $100,000 in final wealth. Not per decade, per year. Every 12 months you put this off, you're choosing to have $100,000 less in retirement. That's the price of waiting. And I want to pause here because I know some of you are doing the math in your head right now and feeling one of two things. Either you're 24 or 25 and you feel this incredible sense of urgency that you absolutely should act on. Or you're 30, 35, 40, maybe older, and you're starting to feel like this video isn't for you. Like the ship has already sailed and there's no point. If that's you, stay with me, because this next part matters just as much. Here's the thing about compound interest that most people get wrong. They think of it as an all or nothing game. Like if you didn't start at 22, you might as well not bother. But that's completely wrong. The second best time to plant that tree is right now, today, regardless of how old you are.
If you're 35 and you start investing $500 a month today at 8%, you'll have $745,000 by 65. That's not $1.74 million, but it's $750,000 that you built from nothing. That's genuinely life-changing money. If you're 40 and you start today, you'll have $473,000. Still meaningful, still enough to dramatically change what retirement looks like for you. And here's the key insight that most people miss. You don't just have $500 a month forever. Your income grows. Your career advances. Your expenses sometimes decrease as you pay things off. The person who starts at 35 investing $500 a month and gradually increases that to $1,000 a month by 45 ends up in a completely different place than the static calculation suggests. The math gets dramatically better when you account for income growth and increasing contributions over time. The point isn't to make you feel good about waiting. The point is to make you realize that wherever you are right now, starting today is infinitely better than starting tomorrow. Now, let's talk about something that most financial videos completely gloss over, and it might be the most practically important piece of this whole conversation. Where exactly should this $500 a month actually go? Because here's where a lot of people make a critical mistake. They get motivated by the numbers. They decide they're going to start investing, and then they open a random brokerage account and dump money into whatever stock they saw trending on social media. And then the market dips 15%. They panic, they pull everything out, and they convince themselves that investing doesn't work.
That's not investing. That's gambling with extra steps. The strategy that actually produces the results we've been talking about is almost embarrassingly simple. You invest in low-cost, broadly diversified index funds. That's it. No stock picking, no market timing, no following influencers who claim they can predict the next big thing. An index fund simply tracks an entire market index, like the S&P 500, which represents the 500 largest companies in America. When you invest in an index fund, you own a tiny slice of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and hundreds of other companies all at once. When those companies grow, your investment grows. And historically, over any long period of time, they have grown. The 8% average annual return we've been using isn't a guess or an optimistic projection. It's a conservative estimate based on the historical average of the S&P 500 going back nearly 100 years, adjusted for inflation. The market has crashes, it has recessions, it has years where it drops 30 or 40%. But over long periods, it has consistently averaged around 10% before inflation, or about 7 to 8% after inflation. And here's the part that most people's brains struggle to accept. The crashes don't actually hurt long-term investors. They help them. When the market drops 30% and you're 30 years old, that means you're buying shares at a 30% discount for several months before the market recovers. You're buying more of the same thing for less money. Every dollar you contribute during a downturn buys more shares, which means more growth on the other side.
This is why the strategy works. Not because the market always goes up in a straight line, but because consistent contributions, through both good times and bad times, over a long enough period, produce outcomes that feel almost impossible when you first see them. Now let's have the conversation that actually matters. Why don't most people do this? Because the math is simple, the strategy is clear, the evidence is overwhelming, and yet the majority of Americans arrive at retirement age with almost nothing saved. The Federal Reserve reports that the median retirement savings for Americans between 55 and 64 is around $87,000. Not $870,000, $87,000 for people who are 1 decade away from retirement. So what's going wrong? The first problem is that people are waiting to feel ready, and you never feel ready. There is no magic income level at which investing suddenly feels easy and natural. I have talked to people making $200,000 a year who feel like they can't afford to invest because their lifestyle has expanded to match their income. And I've talked to people making $38,000 a year who are consistently setting aside $300 a month because they decided it was a priority. The income isn't the variable. The decision is. The second problem is that people are trying to time the market. They watch the news, they see headlines about economic uncertainty, and they tell themselves they'll start investing once things stabilize. But things never fully stabilize. There is always a reason to wait. There was a reason to wait in 2010, in 2015, in 2020, and there will be a reason to wait in 2030. People who waited for certainty before investing are still waiting.
The third problem, and this is the one that I think is the most underrated, is that the results are invisible for so long. When you invest $500 in month one, nothing dramatic happens. Your life looks exactly the same. There's no immediate reward, no dopamine hit, no visible progress. And we live in a world that is engineered to give you instant gratification at every turn. Investing requires you to do something deeply unnatural, which is to make a significant sacrifice today for a benefit you won't fully experience for decades. This is why people blow their savings on a vacation, or a new car, or a home renovation, instead of investing it. Not because they're stupid, not because they don't understand compound interest, but because the reward for investing is abstract and distant, while the reward for spending is immediate and concrete. Understanding this about yourself is actually the most important step, because once you know that your brain is wired to prefer immediate rewards, you can design your financial system to work around that tendency instead of fighting it constantly. The single most effective thing you can do is automate your investments. Set up an automatic transfer on the day you get paid, so that $500 moves from your checking account into your investment account before you ever see it, before you have a chance to spend it, before you talk yourself out of it, before some shiny thing catches your attention and suddenly seems more important than your future.
When you automate, you remove the decision entirely. You're not choosing every month to invest. You invested once, and now it just happens. And that removes the single biggest threat to your long-term financial success, which is you. Here's something I want to address directly, because I see it constantly. People who hear these numbers for the first time and get genuinely excited, and then immediately start doing something that completely undermines the math. They cash out their investments when the market drops. They pause contributions when money gets tight. They withdraw early to cover a financial emergency. And every single one of these actions dramatically changes the outcome. Let me show you what I mean. If Maya invests $500 a month from 25 to 65, but makes 3 different mistakes along the way, pauses contributions for 2 years in her 30s, withdraws $20,000 in her 40s to cover an expense, and panics during a market crash and pulls everything out for 6 months in her 50s, her final balance drops from $1.74 million to closer to $1.1 million. Those 3 mistakes cost her over $600,000. This is why building a proper financial foundation before you start investing matters so much. If you have no emergency fund, the first time your car breaks down or your roof leaks, you're dipping into your investments. If you have high-interest debt, you're bleeding money every month that could be going into the market. The investment strategy only works when you can leave it alone and let it compound uninterrupted for decades. So before you redirect $500 a month into investments, make sure you have at least 1 month of living expenses saved as an emergency fund. Make sure you're not carrying credit card debt at 20% interest, because mathematically, paying that off first is a better return than the market can offer. And make sure the $500 you're investing is money you genuinely won't need to touch for years. Once those pieces are in place, you invest automatically.
in low-cost index funds every single month without checking your balance obsessively, without reacting to headlines, and without stopping when it gets uncomfortable. And then you wait, which is the hardest part, and also the whole strategy. Here is what I want to leave you with. $500 a month is not a small amount of money. I know I said it feels small in the context of retirement, and mathematically it grows into something enormous. But I also want to acknowledge that for a lot of people reading this, finding an extra $500 a month requires real sacrifice. It might mean not eating out as much. It might mean driving an older car a few more years. It might mean taking on a side income for a season, or cutting a subscription or two. Those sacrifices are real, and they're worth it in a way that is almost impossible to fully communicate until you've seen the numbers for yourself. Because what you are actually buying with that $500 a month is not an investment account balance. You're buying options. You're buying the ability to retire when you want to, rather than when you have to. You're buying the ability to walk away from a job that's making you miserable. You're buying the ability to help your kids or your grandkids in ways that most people never can. You're buying freedom. And freedom, it turns out, costs about $500 a month if you start at 25. The math is not complicated. The strategy is not secret. The only question is whether you're going to start today or keep having that conversation with yourself about starting later. And now you know exactly what later costs. Your 65-year-old self is already living somewhere. The question is whether they're living in financial freedom or financial regret. And the decision that determines which one happens is being made right now by the person you are today. Start the transfer, set it to automatic, and then go live your life, because the machine will handle the rest.